A major recruiting week for the West Virginia Mountaineer football program, as they have now landed 6 commits from visits this past weekend. That's right, I said 6, not 5, because just before we started recording, breaking news dropped, and West Virginia has landed another commit and flipped someone from a fellow Big 12 school. We're going to talk about that in this show, in this 36th episode, I think it is, of the Gold and Blue Breakdown Show. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident, are fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians, because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. I'm Couz, and I'm here with my co-host and partner, Jonathan Martin. Jonathan, what's up, man?
Couz, I'm doing my best, Adam Schefter, as we're recording. Just as we're getting ready to go on, the phone starts buzzing, and as you said, there is enough. Yeah, we need to come up with a little thing across
A
so we can make
jingle. We need a
the
jingle.
yeah. And as we always joke, where are the balloons for this one? But
Yeah, I don't even know how to make them appear. They appear when I don't want them to.
that was what the best part about it. So, yeah, literally, as we're getting ready to start talking about I think we could say a pretty big recruiting weekend. We have another one on the board.
Yep. Antoine Sharp, linebacker, 6'1", 212 pounds, who had been verbally committed to UCF, visited Morgantown this past weekend and has now flipped his commitment to the Mountaineers after his visit. Apparently walked away very impressed. Jonathan, man, anytime you can flip somebody from a fellow conference school, especially a team in the state of Florida, it's a big deal. What do you think?
It's a really big deal, Couz, and I'll tell you something else about it. Obviously, and you noted, committed to UCF, was actually going to visit UCF again,
along with Florida State. By the way,
yeah, and so this is somebody that a lot of schools were after. I mean, Indiana, Maryland, Missouri, I think Pitt, Virginia Tech, all in on Sharp. And this is someone, and we're going to talk about a couple commits who are on this show that are just athletic. One thing you love about him is with his size, he's rangy, but he's got a lot of speed. How's this for some stats, Couz? Last year, his junior season, Palm Beach Central, 133 tackles, 13 and a half for loss, 4.5 sacks. And if that wasn't enough, he did intercept one pass last year. So a 3-star recruit according to 247. And this is a big one. This is a big one, Couz. Really big.
Yeah, it is a big one. And looking at his size, Jonathan, he doesn't fit the mold necessarily of a middle linebacker to me. Now, obviously, he can put weight on, so maybe that's their plan for him. But he could, maybe they decide to put him in that out there in that spear position where Fred Perry's going to be where Fred Perry's likely going to be starting this year, the transfer from Jacksonville State. But at 6'1", 212 with length and athleticism, maybe he plays that hybrid spear position. It'll be interesting to see where they put him. But to that's kind of where he might fit.
Yeah, very, very possible, Couz. And if he's 212 now, what's that tell you? It tells me that he's probably going to be able to get to that 225, maybe even about that 230, and they'll work him to where he'll be able to keep that agility, keep that speed, that lateral quickness that he has. A common theme that we're going to hear tonight as we break these recruits down, and as I followed up with some of the guys after they left campus this past weekend. Sharp, of course, on campus as well this past weekend for his official visit. He put a post on X of the coaching staff welcoming him into the facilities. And what was pretty neat about that is every single coach and staff member lined up and they introduced his name, where he was from, and he walked the entire aisle with all the coaches shaking hands, high-fiving. Do you think that doesn't mean something to these young men?
Guarantee it does.
It was enough to pry a Florida boy out of Florida, and that relationship and that extra mile, if you will, that this coaching staff is putting on right now with these recruits is resonating, and you can tell here tonight with the commitment of Antoine Sharp.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it, man. I think it's a huge, like I said, and I actually misspoke. He didn't have a visit to Florida State plan. He
Yeah,
had already
he was going.
visited. He had already visited Florida State.
Yeah. He had already been to Florida State and was planning to go back to UCF later this month. So,
Yep.
just a big, huge pickup. We'll see where it goes from here. But obviously, he saw enough in Morgantown this past weekend to say that's where I want to call home, and flip from a now still. Does it not still feel weird to say a Big 12 competitor?
Yeah,
In
it does.
UCF?
Yeah, I still have to catch myself.
Yeah, it just when I say it and it rolls off the tongue, even though I know it, it still feels strange to say it. But flipping from one Big 12 school to another.
Yeah. And, I'm that video you mentioned, I'm actually looking at it right now on the screen. And, I mentioned his weight. He's got a body type, though.
Yeah.
He could very well put on more weight. So maybe they do plan on, I'll be interested to see, read some more on him. Maybe they do plan on putting him at middle linebacker. I'm not sure. But either way, it's a good pickup.
It is. And I tell you something, Couz, when you get down into Florida, especially that Palm Beach area, and I want to date myself here, and I'm going to age myself here, but I've covered recruiting. I've been around it for seemingly a pretty long time. When you get down into Florida, you get down into the Palm Beach area, and because when you get 130 plus tackles and 4.5 sacks and 13 plus for loss, you're pretty good. Mm-hmm. And you're playing against some pretty good competition as well. So, yeah, you absolutely have to love this pickup for West Virginia.
Yep, I love it. And
we appreciate him announcing that, right?
Hey, absolutely. I've already got my title and thumbnail picked out. Thank you, Antoine Sharp.
Yep, we appreciate it.
Let's go ahead and stick with linebacker, okay? This one doesn't have quite as much hype around him, but he's I think he's still a talented player. His name's Miles Cottrey. I guess I assume I'm pronouncing his name right. He's another linebacker. He's out of Alabama, I believe.
Yep.
Very versatile player. Can play multiple positions. Is an elite. Another guy who had over 100 tackles. No stars now. He's not a 3 or 4 star kid, but I think he might be eventually. I think he might be one of those recruits that West Virginia is early on, and may have spotted something that other schools haven't yet. And I think by the end of his senior year, he might be more highly recruited, and they might be having to fend off other schools for him. But what are your thoughts on Miles Cottrey, the linebacker out of Alabama?
First, let me say, Couz, I tell you, it's a pretty smooth transition from one player to another because these two guys are very similar.
Yep.
6 foot, 215, extremely athletic. You notice another theme? Over 100 tackles, 14 for loss. He had 4 sacks, and he also had an interception last year. So it tells me you're getting versatile players. You're getting athletic players that can run side to side. Again, it's probably a frame where you can add 10, 15, 20 pounds on it. So what they want to do with him and Sharp, as we just noted, you've got a lot of options. Mm-hmm. And you get defensive coordinator Zach Alley and his guys on that side of the football. It's pretty evident real quick who's what they're targeting, right?
Yep.
They're looking for these rangy players that can play multiple positions. As you noted, not rated yet. That's okay. That's okay. Hey, you gotta find these guys, right? You're not going to go out and win and get 4 and 5 star players every time, and that's okay. Somebody that you can get in, build a relationship with, develop, can play wherever you want him to. Liberty, Charlotte, Army and Air Force interested. Tells me he's got his smarts about him.
Yeah, that's true.
So, typically speaking, Couz, when that translate over to the football field as well. Mm-hmm. And so another player that I know that they were able to get in last week on official visit. Keep an eye on this one. This is, a lot of times, Couz, you run into these situations, right? You've got a lot of schools that are looking, a lot of schools that are interested, and all it takes is for the one bigger school to pull that trigger, and
Yep.
then it pops off. It
Yep.
would not surprise me one bit if you started seeing some other schools get involved, throw out offers, try and get Miles on campus. So that's one to pay attention to, not in the sense of fearful of losing him, but a lot of times it just takes that one offer for the others to say, okay, we're in.
Yep.
So keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, and the size, we talked about him, being similar players. I mean, their numbers are similar, with one exception. He actually had 10 pass breakups as well. That's what is leading me to believe
Yeah.
they might utilize him as more of that spear position.
Yeah.
Because he has shown he can play the pass.
Yeah.
And 6'2", 215. Walt Sharp, 6'1", 212. So similar size, similar
Yeah.
skill set. I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, they're looking for guys who have produced at high school level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who have proven it. And right now, when with the addition of Sharp, they now have 13 commits total for the 2026 class. All these are 2026 guys. And one thing I haven't been able to pin down, and doesn't really matter, Jonathan. It's just a detail. But the research I did had him at Pike Road High School in Alabama, but I saw some other outlets who had it listed as Montgomery Catholic, Alabama. Again, maybe he's transferred schools or something. But anyway, I just want to point that out. It's not really relevant, but
a lot of good football down in that area too.
There is.
So again, I wouldn't necessarily take the no stars quite yet. And I wouldn't necessarily take the stats that he was able to put up last season and kind of just dismiss them. This is somebody that they feel good about, and I'm glad we started off. And I didn't have anything to do with this, but I'm glad we started off with both of those guys back to back, because the similarities just speak volumes about what this staff is looking for, especially at that position and on that defensive side of the ball for sure.
Well, great minds think alike, Jonathan. You know what they say.
There you go. That's right. There you go.
This is easy to do because so far of the 13 commits, I think 9 of them have been defense. So we're staying on the defensive side of the ball. We're going back to the secondary, and we're looking at defensive back Samaj Hill.
Yeah.
Another player with multiple P4 offers. By the way, I do want to point out there are articles on all of these guys with the exception of Sharp because it just broke. But there will be one up maybe by the time you watch this or listen to this. But there are articles on all of these guys up at wvsportschat.com, the new website. So go check it out. Myself and Jonathan have got some stuff up on these guys and some of our colleagues as well. What are your thoughts on this young man?
Yeah, so this
Samaj
happened.
Hill.
Yeah, so this happened with 2 players, and if we had those sirens, we'd blare them. The flip alert.
Yep.
Hill was actually committed to James Madison, Couz, committed there on April the 15th. He's out of St. Joseph's Prep, a school that has out of the Philadelphia area that has produced some pretty talented players. 22 pass breakups last season. Didn't we just talk about that with Miles? Yeah, 22 pass breakups. This is somebody Syracuse, Wake Forest, North Carolina State. We're all interested here, and able to get him on campus and get him to commit, get him to flip from James Madison. So again, another solid job by West Virginia to get on him, and not the only defensive back to commit. We'll talk about the other one here shortly. But, yeah, again, love his athleticism, a lot of speed, a ball hawk. Probably not the biggest player out there, but he's fearless. And when you play in the Philadelphia area, there's a lot of good football up there, especially at St. Joseph's Prep. So he's going to be coached well, and he's going to be ready by the time he gets to Morgantown.
Yeah. Now, you talked about that other defensive back, and I did not have I'm assuming you're talking about Jalen Jones, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So go ahead and talk about him while I'm getting the banner ready.
Yeah, Fresno City, California, defensive back. I tell you what I really like about Jalen Jones, because he's 6'2", 175 pounds. This is somebody that's big, he's strong, and you get that package along with being athletic. 3 years of eligibility left. I'd go all the way back several episodes ago when we were doing this show for all the guys coming in through the transfer portal, right? And one thing that we talked about was we thought that West Virginia had done a really good job of getting a mix of players that had 1 year remaining. And then they did a pretty good job of mixing in those guys with 2 and 3 years remaining. And one reason why that's important is if you can get them in and build that relationship with them and go ahead and build that trust and keep them on board. So this is somebody that out of the junior college ranks, 3 years left. Who's at 6'2", 175 pounds. He had 5 interceptions last season. So lives around the football, especially in that secondary. Because when I talked to him, and you're right, we did articles over at the website, wvsportschat.com, and I talked to him after he left Morgantown. He spoke highly of not just the staff in total, but safeties coach Gabe Franklin. Lead recruiter, came out and visited him, got him on campus. He just talked about how from California to West Virginia, it was amazing that he could feel so at home being so far away.
Yeah.
And again, we touched on it earlier and we said it would be a theme of the night. Well, there you go again. Somebody that just spoke so highly about this coaching staff and what they did while they were on campus, making them feel at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go ahead and stay on the defensive side of the ball. 2 more guys to talk about. First one, another guy with multiple P4 offers, defensive tackle Cameron Mallory.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him?
Couz, he's ready. I mean, this young man is ready to play some big-time college football. You don't see many of these at this level. We talked earlier about the talent in Alabama. There's some good talent in Moody, Alabama. I can promise you that. 6'2", darn near 300 pounds already, and he's just ready. His body's ready. His strength is ready. His versatility is ready. Who's everybody and their brother wanted him? Louisville, Missouri, Cincinnati, you name it. 3-star. He was a number 30th ranked overall player in the entire state of Alabama. You want some stats? How's this? 6'2", 295. Because I think he had 96 total tackles, 22 tackles for a loss, 12 sacks.
Yeah.
22 tackles for a loss.
Yeah.
That is living in the backfield.
Well, how often do you see a defensive lineman with 96 tackles?
Yeah.
Defensive lineman is usually the guy taking up space and blockers for the linebackers and the edge rushers and all those guys to make plays. He's not waiting on that. He's making plays himself.
Yeah, to me, it's twofold, and you're completely right. It's making plays yourself, but you know what else it is? It's not giving up on a play.
Yep.
And when I saw those stats, my mind went right to where yours did. That's just making it happen. It's not waiting on somebody else to make it happen, but is also not giving up on a play. Maybe you miss. Maybe you need to correct your angle. You're not waiting around for somebody. You're not shrugging your shoulders. You're going and getting somebody.
Yep.
Because let me tell you, you don't get 96 tackles in a season by being lazy at 6'2", 295 pounds. I can promise you that. And so, this is somebody that this could be one of the players that I'm most excited about. That this young man is ready to go. Now your challenge is going to be fending off other players because other schools. You know it's going to happen. Maybe some of these other schools are going to swing and miss at some big fish. Mallory's going to have a huge season coming up. We just know that's going to happen based off of how it's been throughout his high school career. So it's one thing to get a commitment. It's another to hang on to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and when you look at the schools that have offered him, I mean, Missouri out of the SEC, Louisville, who has some big money donors. You got Boston College, Cincinnati. So these are not, these are big time programs here.
And Couz, it always happens that your Florida States, your Auburns, schools like that, Mississippi States, Ole Miss, they come in late. And we talked earlier about sometimes they just wait on somebody to pull that trigger, and that's true. But sometimes these schools are really swinging for the fence, right?
Yep.
And they're battling other SEC schools out. And the ones that miss tend to go down to these players like Mallory. So it's one thing to get the commitment. It's another thing to hold on to it. So
agreed.
Here's hoping they can, because this young man is ready to go.
Well, man, he's probably going to put on even more weight potentially.
Oh.
Well, if they want him to. Now, they may not want him to. They might want him to stay at 2, because Coach Rod loves speed.
Yeah.
He's all about speed, all over the field, both sides of the ball. I'm sure Zach Alley's probably the same way. And also, Zach Alley's aggressive. He likes to play aggressive, likes to blitz a lot. Now, obviously, he's a defensive tackle, but still. And in the Big 12, you're going to face some offenses that are high, spread, hurry up, like Texas Tech, for example. So you may not want a guy who's 330, 340 pounds, right? You may want him to be slimmed down and so they can move a little better.
Yeah.
But either way, West Virginia's got a really good program, strength and conditioning program, nutrition program, so they'll get him where he needs to be. But those numbers are astounding, and he's probably going to get better because, again, that was his junior year.
Yeah.
He's still got a senior year coming up.
Yep. Yeah, cannot wait to see his trajectory. Cameron Mallory is someone that everybody should be really, really excited about.
Yeah,
it's darn near a shame he's not eligible this season.
Yeah, really.
he's a player. He's a player.
And let's talk about another flip. How about flip number 3? This one from a team who's not technically a Power 4 school, but recently was Oregon State. Noah Tischendorf, an edge rusher who had previously been committed to Oregon State, has flipped his commitment. Another West Coast kid who's coming to Morgantown. What about this international? This national recruiting philosophy?
Yeah, Couz, when's the last time? Okay, I'm asking the question like I know the answer. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I don't know.
When's the last time West Virginia got a player from the state of Oregon?
Yeah, I don't know. That might be a Chat GPT question.
And I had to backtrack on
I don't know the answer.
Man, I built that question up, Couz, like I knew the answer, knowing darn well when I was about to ask it, I know the answer.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't know the answer, but here's what I do know. Noah Tischendorf is another really good football player. Again, you talk about a body that's ready to play some Big 12 football, 6'3", 240 pounds. Obviously, he had an offer from Oregon State, Washington State, UNLV, 3-star, most recruiting services. Another one of those Couz that told me West Virginia staff made him feel at home. He made that trek all the way across country from Oregon to Morgantown, West Virginia, and left saying, "You know what? I want to go there. I'm done with Oregon State. Let's go to West Virginia." So somebody that you should really be excited about. Again, extremely athletic, can move around. Watch some of his film the other day, Couz, and his side-to-side athleticism is unbelievable. He started on one side, chased running backs down on the other. So has a motor that doesn't quit. This is somebody else going to be really exciting to see. And anytime you could flip a player or flip a recruit from someone like Oregon State, their home state, says a lot.
And he had some Power 4 offers too. He chose Oregon State over some Power 4 programs.
Sure.
Just because it was home and I'm sure he had a good relationship with the staff and everything. So But anyway, I'm going to do something that I've probably never seen. At least I've never done on the show. I'm going to talk to Grok right here live on the air. Hey, Grok, has West Virginia ever had a football player from the state of Oregon? It helps if I hit the button. Has West Virginia University ever had a football player from the state of Oregon?
I would be shocked to see the answer to this.
Well, ChatGPT said it was Pat White, so we know that was wrong because he was from Alabama. It listed Noah Tischendorf.
Would he be the first? I can't imagine he's the first.
Challenging due to limited records explicitly linking players' hometowns to Oregon.
It's some research.
Yep.
Maybe should have done that one before.
That's all right. That's all right. They like to watch us struggle, so it's all good. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry for the silence. I was reading Grok. And according to Grok and ChatGPT, there have been no other players from the state of Oregon. I have a hard time believing that. But anyway, I just thought that'd be be fun.
But it would be a great time to drop a comment if you do know someone that we could be missing. I would have a hard time, Couz, thinking that it hasn't happened.
But you never know.
But you never know.
It ain't like they've recruited Oregon heavily over the years.
that they have not. That they have not. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe they got there was a junior college kid that they got from, say, in Arizona, California, that was made. But I'm talking about somebody that was actually high school from the state of Oregon.
Yep.
I'll do some research. I'm on it, Couz.
All right. You do that. I want an answer by – no, I'm kidding.
Next week? Next year? Do I get a week?
Oh, man. That's funny. All right. Let's go ahead and they are recruiting offense too, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody's defense. They did get one offensive commitment. By the way, is it obvious that they're trying to really do some work on the defensive side of the ball? You know,
sure, yeah.
Which is good, which is refreshing. But anyway, a big ugly Rhett Morris, offensive lineman, who had offers. I made sure to include this on the banner.
Yeah.
Out-recruited Pitt and out-recruited Virginia Tech for this young man. Offensive lineman Rhett Morris, who said, and I quote, West Virginia had an elite coaching staff.
Yeah.
Jonathan, you can expand on that a little bit if you want.
Yeah, Rhett Morris, Couz, Don Bosco Prep out of New Jersey. Let me tell you, that's a legendary football school. If you don't know much about high school football, do some research on Don Bosco Prep in New Jersey and tell me what kind of talent they've churned out over the years. And Rhett Morris fits right in the mold. 6'3", 305, 3-star by most services. First O-line of the class. And this is this young man that plays Maine, Couz. I love it. Big, strong, just not afraid. Gets in the trenches, makes the game ugly. You just have to love it. And part of my talking point tonight was something that you said. Chose West Virginia over several schools, but Virginia Tech and Pitt. That should make a lot of people happy.
Yep.
And when I talked to him following his official visit this past weekend, that is a quote. West Virginia has an elite coaching staff. So when you're out wondering how Rich Rodriguez and his staff are doing on the recruiting trail, how successful can they be, what have they assembled in terms of a staff, a recruiting staff, just remember that darn near every one of these players have talked about the staff, made them feel at home, made them feel welcome, and now you have an elite coaching staff. So Rhett Morris is someone that's going to come in and mark it down today, fan favorite in Morgantown, I'll promise you.
Yeah. By the way, he also pointed out he likes the fact that it's the only show in town.
Yep, absolutely.
He pointed out the fact, he's like the history of the program. You mentioned the elite coaching staff, and he said it has everything I'm looking for in a school and football team.
Yep.
So the staff is doing a really good job of selling what West Virginia has to offer, which, again, they're the pro team of the state.
Yep.
I got to give a shout out to a friend of the show, Eugene Napoleon, who I've had as a guest on the show a couple of times, co-hosts the walkthrough game day show with Skylar Callahan over at West Virginia on SI. He's been adamant that they need to do better. That West Virginia needed to do a better job of getting back to recruiting New York, New Jersey area, because they used to do that back in the day, and they had kind of gotten away from it a little bit.
Yeah.
Eugene, they got a New Jersey kid, man. At least a commitment from a New Jersey kid, so that's a good sign. Again, 6'3", 305, big guy. I'm excited about it. And again, building that O-line, you've got to have some young bucks on that O-line. They've brought in a lot of transfers that are upperclassmen. This should help balance some of that out.
And Couz, that's a really good point about New Jersey, and it almost kind of brings you back to the old school Big East recruiting mentality, does it not?
A little bit.
I mean, you look at this, Couz. Now I know Oregon. We just made a big joke out of Oregon, right? But you've got to get some of those. Alabama had some pretty good success there, hadn't West Virginia's had some pretty good success out of Alabama.
A little bit. Some guy named Pat White. Have you ever heard of him?
Some guy from down in there. Alabama, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, specifically the Philadelphia area, and Florida, with some others mixed in. But that takes you back, Coos, to the old Big East days where they said, "Hey, we're going to hit the Northeast. We're going to hit Florida. We're going to hit parts of Alabama. We're going to go into Ohio, and we're going to sprinkle some other players around." This was a great point by you and Eugene. This is old school Rich Rodriguez mentality of, we're going to go back to where the dudes are, right? And we're going to get them, and we're going to bring them to Morgantown, play some football. So really good to see these players from some areas that we're familiar with going back so many years ago that produced so well for West Virginia over the years.
Yeah. But, and of course, I always got to be I've always got to throw the wet blanket on the fire, I guess maybe is the right metaphor here. Got to put an asterisk. We know these guys are only commits. Some of them may not ever sign, may not ever see the field for West Virginia, because somebody always puts that in the comment section.
Yeah,
we know that. But most of the time, when a kid commits, they stick with it, right? And I think, Jonathan, with the era that we're coming into, with the era of revenue sharing, I think it may be easier to hold on to guys now, potentially. We'll see. But, hopefully it'll put West Virginia schools like them on a little bit more level playing field.
Yeah.
And these guys, now, again, you've always got the allure of a big name. That's always been there. Okay, so we're not discounting that. But so hopefully these guys will stick to their commitments. But the point is, it shows it shows the work the staff's doing because they're recruiting nationwide. It shows the types of players they're able to get.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows you their strategy. They're looking for guys who have produced at a high level. They're not looking at just measurables. Measurables matters, don't get me wrong. But they're looking for kids who produced and who have put it on tape.
Yeah.
Couz,
no school, no matter how big you are, bats 1,000 in their recruiting class.
No, nobody.
It just doesn't happen. And you can't have a recruiting show tonight talking about all these commitments headlined by 3 flips and not understand the obvious, that it's going to happen. It could happen. And so we're understanding of that. But to your point, most of all, you're going to keep a large percentage of these players, right? And so when a young man commits, we're going to cover it. But we do understand these are just commitments. So exciting times for sure. Really exciting about. What a weekend! What a weekend. But we understand that it's possible. We understand that it even could be likely. We've talked about 3 tonight, but you know what? We're going to enjoy what's committed so far. See how it goes.
Yep. Now, I'm going to spring this topic on you, kind of, Jonathan. We didn't discuss because as I was, as I'm pulling up sites and stuff, I saw an article that RJ Rice put up over on the site that was news that broke this week that we probably need to talk about, and that's the future home games that were announced for West Virginia football this week.
Yeah.
And again, RJ Rice put an article up on this, but West Virginia has now filled out their football schedule basically through, I think, 2032, if I'm not mistaken. They've added some home games with September 13th, 26th. They will be playing UT Martin. That's obviously, next year. Youngstown State.
Yeah.
September 9th, 2028. Akron has been added to the schedule out of the MAC conference for September 16th, 28, and September 14th, 2030. So 2 games for 2028. An FCS opponent in Youngstown State and a MAC/G6 opponent in Akron. And then St. Francis, PA, taken off the schedule for 2030, replaced with Rhode Island. So that now fills out the games on West Virginia's schedule that had not been completed. And this, they've done what they wanted to do.
Yep.
And that is get more games on the schedule against G5 teams and less games against Power 4 teams. So they're getting Neil Brown's wish after Neil Brown. Does that make sense? Did I say that right?
Yeah, we know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Poor Neil Brown.
Yeah. He had a brutal schedule, man. If you look, I mean, now look, I'm not defending him because he
Yeah,
should have won more games than he did. He had many opportunities to win games.
yeah.
But man, he was not dealt a fair hand when it comes to scheduling at
I would
all.
agree with that. And Couz, this is an age old question, right? How should West Virginia schedule? And I think this has been a battle within the athletic department, within athletic directors, within head football coaches. Like, what's best, right? And the problem here is, and I will say, you do. I'm not even getting paid for this comment or for this lift you up on a pedestal
I'll slide
here.
you. I'll throw you a quarter tomorrow or
But
something.
you do a really good job of honing in on future schedules, playoffs, a lot of that type stuff. So you probably would know a lot better than me as how it's trending in terms of how the playoff bracket and the
Mm-hmm.
schedules and how many games you need to win and what's it going to look like if you can afford a loss here or there. And so I'm not surprised that West Virginia's trending in this direction or wanted to trend in this direction because of trying to get into the playoff and how it's structured, how the formula, at least of now, looks like it's going to be. And I think the biggest problem is there's so many question marks about it, right? Like, is it going to change? Are we doing this now for now, but then we're going to be stuck and it changes? So a lot of questions there. I'll be interested to get your thoughts on it. I'm okay with this schedule. I think it works for West Virginia.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
I don't hate it. I mean, listen, I don't think Youngstown State and Akron and Rhode Island and even UT, I don't think they're going to. I don't think anybody's going to walk away from those games ready to hang national championship banners at the football stadium. Uh, but the age-old question is it better for West Virginia to schedule these games as compared to Penn State's and Alabama's and so forth and so on? I tend to like this model a little bit better, if I'm being honest, because I think you can make up your bigger wins later in the conference. There's no reason to beat yourself up early. Just kind of my take on it.
I have mixed feelings on it. I do trust Ren Baker, and I do
And I would
think,
agree. And I want to interrupt. Just sorry.
yeah, that's
I
okay.
do have mixed feelings on it, in the sense of I think every West Virginia fan out there would love to open a season up in Atlanta with
That's
Alabama,
fair. Yeah,
or open it up in Atlanta with Florida State, or let's go back and look at the excitement last year leading up to Penn State at home with
I don't want to
Pat
talk about that game.
McAfee in town. I know, but look at the excitement
Oh
level,
yeah,
right? So I agree with you to the point of how much excitement are we having this offseason compared to last? Now, I want to throw the coaching staffs, the coaching changes, I want to throw all at the window. But can we honestly sit here today and say that we are just as excited for the season opener this year as we were last year? And again, throw Rich Rod back out, throw that out of the question. Throw another year of Neil Brown out the window. I'm just talking about as we prepare ourselves for the next season. Are you more excited or just as excited for what West Virginia has this year or last year? So I understand it that I have mixed emotions about it, but I think in the end, for winning football game purposes, this is probably the best option.
I agree. I mean, you get the number one thing they're trying to do is win the Big 12. That's their
Sure,
number one goal.
sure.
So playing Penn State does not help you do that.
Mm-mm.
Playing Alabama does not help you do that, right? Uh, and getting these home games on the schedule makes you more money because you sell tickets to your stadium, you sell concessions at your stadium, you sell merch at your stadium, right? That's another goal they've been trying to accomplish,
Yeah.
and it should, if everything works out the way it should, those should be wins on your schedule. should be 2 guaranteed wins a year.
No.
On your schedule. Now they might screw up and lose one here and there, but it's, assuming they don't, you only got to win 4 Big 12 games and you're bowl eligible. So that's and they're not getting, hopefully if things go well, you don't have to play your starters as much in those games. Your guys aren't getting as beat up. I mean, it's just, I think there's a lot to it. I mean, we've heard Neil Brown talk about it. We've heard Rian even talk about it. Those are the reasons they mentioned that they wanted to go back to playing. And that's what most power conference teams are doing. You play one Power 4 opponent, one G5 opponent, and one FCS opponent. That's what they're getting back to. Now, most of these years, have a Power 4 team on the schedule. They have Alabama coming up the next 2 years, assuming that doesn't get canceled because the SEC decides to go to 9 conference games. That's very possible.
Right.
They've got Tennessee on the schedule again down the road. They've got a couple neutral site games against Virginia now on the schedule. Pitt comes back on the schedule in 29, which brings me to one other question for you, Jonathan, or one other point maybe. This, we've heard some talk that, fans wanted to see that 4-year gap where we don't play Pitt or whatever, 3 or 4 year gap closed, maybe, and because Pitt has some open dates supposedly during those years. This closes that window unless those Alabama games get canceled. The opportunity to play Pitt is now gone during this 3-year hiatus of the Backyard Brawl. What are your thoughts on that?
It's easy for me. Pitt needs to be on a schedule every year.
Bingo.
I agree. Every year.
Now, am I excited to play Alabama? Yeah, I'm excited about that game.
Sure.
But it's not a rivalry.
It's not a rivalry because you just can't. I mean, we just talked last week on the Golden Blue Breakdown show with Beanie Bishop's comments about the Backyard Brawl. How much fire did that set? I mean, it almost, X went crazy.
Almost broke social media.
Yeah, over 2 schools, West Virginia and Pitt. And you had people that really wasn't even familiar with Backyard Brawl talking about it. And it just goes to the point, needs to be played every year. I agree with you that I'm excited about playing some other schools. But if it's because we're canceling the Pitt game, I'd rather play Pitt. I just want it on a schedule. Yep, needs to be on a schedule.
Agreed.
And I'd almost say to a certain extent, Virginia Tech as well, but I think Pitt just above that game.
Mm-hmm.
I think
there's just so much more hatred there between the fan bases, the programs. I mean, for you and I down here in the southern part of the state, we look at Virginia Tech probably differently than the people in the northern part of the state around Morgantown.
Yeah,
because we're so close to Blacksburg. But Pitt is, when you look at the program as a whole, Pitt's a bigger rivalry. It just is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Every year.
Yeah.
Every year. And I will be extremely disappointed if it's not.
Yeah. All right, we're going to talk a little hoops, Jonathan. Ross Hodge was on with the guys at Field of 68. I drew a blank on the name there for a second. Field of 68 did an interview with Ross Hodge, and he talked about his recruiting. And they asked him, about bringing in specifically about Honor Huff and Trace and Eagle staff. And he basically talked about bringing in guys who have won. And here are some of the examples he gave. And this really, I hadn't really sit and thought about this, but he gave examples of Honor Huff won the NIT. His team won the NIT tournament last year. Harlan Obioha, the center, his team went to the NCAA tournament last year at UNC Wilmington. Jackson Fields from Troy went to the NCAA tournament. Brennan Lorient and Jasper Floyd both, played in the semifinals of the NIT last year for Ross Hodge. Those are just a few examples. As a matter of fact, Brennan Lorient even played in the Final Four.
Yeah.
When he was at FAU his freshman year. So, I mean, Morris Ugasuk has played in the Final Four or the NCAA tournament at least. So what are your thoughts on that approach? I mean, first off, had you thought about that before? Because I really hadn't. But what do you think about that approach of bringing in guys who are winners?
Yeah, kind of noticed it a little bit, just kind of offhand as we started looking at some of these players coming in. And, and that stuck out in terms of obviously some guys that are more on the veteran side that yeah, they're going to be able to step in right away and play. I think it's a great strategy, and I think if you started talking to coaches around the country, that's a strategy that they'd all kind of like to implement, right? I think it's especially brilliant for somebody like Hodge, who's coming to West Virginia fresh. Look at how the program's been in a little bit of turmoil over the last couple of years. I think that's putting it lightly. And then I think that it's not surprising, though, in the sense of Hodge is a winner.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look everywhere he's been, even in the junior college ranks. Look where he was with Grant McCaslin. He was a winner. Whenever he finally got the job in North Texas, he was a winner. That's all Hodge has ever done is win.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not surprising to me how he's constructed his roster. And this is something that we've talked about multiple times. Results to be determined, but I love how he has really shaped his roster to guys that are familiar with the system, guys that can score the ball, guys that can defend the ball, and now guys that are winners. And so I think the formula in which Hodge and his staff are articulating with this team says a lot about what he's thinking about his path to be successful, not down the road, but this season.
Yeah.
So again, results to be determined, but I love the strategy, and I think he's done a really nice job. And I was actually glad in the midst. It came at a crazy time with all the football commitments, but it was nice to finally get a little bit of hoops news out of Hodge and the roster.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, when you look at those guys, when you're on teams who win a lot, you cannot help but kind of the culture is going to be ingrained in you to a degree, right?
Yeah.
That winning culture,
it's an expectation.
Yep, and those guys are going to bring that with them to Morgantown. And if everybody on your team has that mentality and that culture, and they're accustomed to winning,
yeah,
it's going to filter through the whole program. And I think that's what you want, right?
Yeah, it's an expectation. And again, even though these guys are not familiar with Morgantown and West Virginia basketball, as you noted, they're all coming in with the expectation of I've won, I know how to win, and I expect to win.
Yep.
And so you put these, 10, 11, 12 guys together, and I expect part of the reason why in one of our episodes recently we talked about one of the questions from somebody we answered was, will West Virginia make the Sweet 16 this year? And I went out on a limb and said yes, because I like what he's building, how he's building it, and this kind of ties into that thought that he's got guys that are some winners and expect to win.
Yeah. You know what I like about Ross Hodge, and this is totally not even basketball related. He kind of talks like us.
Oh, he does.
Now, he's from Texas, not from West Virginia, but
no, but that North
Texas.
He
said he mentioned the day of the week. I don't remember what day, and he ended it with E instead of A. Like he said Sunday or Saturday.
Yeah.
Like we have a tendency to do.
Wednesday.
And I'm like, Wednesday. I'm like,
yep.
I like this guy.
Oh, yeah, buddy. That's that Texas draw. So
yeah.
I think he's going to fit in just fine.
Yeah. And he's so humble, man. I mean, they were asking him questions about, what it's like to coach at West Virginia and in the Big 12 specifically with all these other great coaches. And he went into how he's just so fortunate. And he was talking about how there have been so many great coaches that he's coached against, even at the JUCO level, and named off several names of guys that nobody's ever heard of for the most part, who never got the opportunity that he's getting. And he said, we're so humbled and blessed by this opportunity. We're not taking it for granted. And I'm like, man, this guy is he says all the right things. He's a man of faith, and not saying that you have to be that to win.
Yeah.
But I think it matters. I think it's important. Sure. I think it helps ground you, and helps you keep your priorities in line. And I just really like him, man. I think he's going to fit in well. One of my fears, and it's not really a fear because it'd be a good thing, but if he has success and leaves, but you can't worry about that stuff. But I really like him as a person, and I like what he's doing and the way he's building the program.
Couz, I think that the West Virginia fan base was starving for somebody like Ross Hodge.
Yeah, and I think Ren Baker was smart enough to realize that too.
Yeah, I think so, and I think If I could even go all the way back to the Bob Huggins, right? I mean, what happened? Just that whole situation was up in the air, and then the DeVries situation on how it kind of just spiraled seemingly out of control at the very end, and I would even go from um, just the personality style. Um, and then the season faded after some highlights early in the
Mm-hmm.
year, and then thought you should be into the big, and some of it not his fault, but just the taste of the program,
Right.
right? I think I think West Virginia fans were just starving for somebody like Ross Hodge, and the more I listen to him, and I tell myself that I'm just really excited to get to know him and to hear him a little bit more, um, because I think that he just brings so much the family style, that y'all and draw
Y'all
you
all
were talking
all
about,
that all shucks mentality.
yeah, but he fits that West Virginia mold. That don't
Mm-hmm.
be fooled by that all shucks
Right.
mentality, because
Exactly.
when it's time to go to work, it's time to go to work.
Yep.
And yeah, it's early because it's June, and who knows what happens next year. But I would be stunned if he doesn't build something special in Morgantown, and I think he's going to work his tail off, and his staff's going to do it. I think he's going to demand his players to
Mm-hmm.
do it in order to be successful.
Yep. Agreed. And there was a little bit of roster news that came out. This is actually probably a couple of weeks old at this point, or at least a week old, that kind of didn't get talked about a lot. The fan base has been hungry, I guess, for lack of a better term, or at least adamant that, hey, they got to bring in another big. We got to have another big besides Harlan Obioha. Well, they got one,
Yeah,
and they didn't have to go far to find him.
yeah,
Abraham Oyedir, who was on the roster
yeah.
last season, had entered the portal, has withdrawn his name from the portal, and is apparently on the West Virginia roster. So he's staying in Morgantown. What are your thoughts on that move?
Yeah, sometimes what you're looking for is right in front of you, right?
Yeah.
This is something actually, Kuz, that we had kind of, I don't know if speculated was the right word, but we had talked about it a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
it kind of made sense. The problem with Oyedeer is you didn't quite know much,
Yeah.
right?
Because he
Because
redshirted a year ago.
he
We
redshirted.
didn't even see him play.
You didn't even see him play. So really, all you had to go on was some statistics from prep school, right out in California. But what you saw, you liked. Um, he's big, 6'9", 221. He's got a long wingspan, Coos. But I think it was over 10 points a game, over 11 rebounds a game, and almost
Yep.
2 blocks a game.
Yeah.
Athletic as can be, runs the
Yeah.
floor, real long. Um, but he just kind of fits the Ross Hodge, right? And we've even talked about this because I don't. How many times have you and I said, I think the core here to this team is built, right? I think now you're just putting pieces in place to make you a better program.
Mm-hmm.
And this move reminds me of that. This is somebody that's going to come in. Um, I mean, maybe he doesn't give you but about 6 or 8 minutes a game, but I think there'll be quality minutes, right? And let's not kid ourselves. He hadn't played in almost 2 years, and so there's going to be a little of adjustment. But I think Ross Hodge obviously saw enough there to I don't know if bring him back is the right term here. I guess it is. But yeah, really excited to see him get back on the court underneath this system, and I think it's one he can excel at.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Ross Hodge saw something in him, apparently, by asking him to stay. You got the advantage of somebody who knows the school,
Yeah,
knows the city, has been there a year. He's going to be able to help, you know, the new guys kind of navigate all that, right? I think sometimes we focus so much on the game part of it, we miss a lot of that stuff. These
yeah,
are college kids, man, coming to a new city. Some of them their first time away from home, or in the case of some of these freshmen or whatever. Having and when you have a whole new roster and nobody there knows anything,
yeah,
and you even got a new staff,
yeah,
who is there to tell them where to go to sign up for classes, how to get to restaurant XYZ down the street, whatever the case may be. I mean, That stuff's
Yeah.
that stuff. It may not be the end all be all, but I think I think it matters, and it helps the guys feel more comfortable. And he can do that, right? And
Yeah.
you have at least one guy there. Last year it was Ofri Nave. This year it's going to be Abraham Oyedir that can help navigate these guys through, what it means to be in Morgantown, be at West Virginia University. And maybe not the program because it's going to be different, but the facilities, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I think maybe that gets overshadowed a little bit. But and again, is that what's going to win you championships? Probably not. But I think it is a small piece of it anyway.
Yeah, but it's good to see somebody like Oyedir be able to be rewarded just a little bit, Couz. I mean,
Yeah,
you've got to
true.
think somebody from Ghana that came to California, committed to a school across the country, looks up, his coach, red shirts, doesn't play. Coach is gone, players are gone. Kind of reminds me of that uh, Fresh Prince of Bel Air
Yeah.
episode when they walk in and like it's empty. And it's
He's
like
down there by himself.
standing by himself. He's like,
Yeah.
where'd everybody go?
Well, it's just, I mean, it's almost exactly like Ofri Nove a year ago.
Yeah.
Almost exactly. Comes from
Yeah.
a foreign country, only one left on the roster. I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
And so turned upside down. And so, again, I think we have to be honest about our situation here, right? I think it's somebody that hasn't played competitively in a couple years. But I think Hodge looks at this situation and says, okay, what do I need?
mhm,
Right? I need somebody with size. Okay, this fits. I need somebody with length. Okay, this fits. I need somebody that's athletic. All right, he fits there. I need somebody who can rebound the basketball. Well, that fits there too. I need somebody that can give me some minutes. Okay. So it's like box checked, box checked, box checked. Oh, and by the way, to your point, he's familiar. He knows the facilities. He knows the university. He knows everything about the campus. He knows the town. Um, and by all accounts, he's a great young man. So
yeah,
I think it's a good fit, and I think somebody like we started off by saying, sometimes when you're looking for something that's right underneath you, you just got to see it.
yep,
And I think it'll be. I think it's a good match. I think
yep,
it's a really good match.
yep. I like it. And listen, we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I do want to get your thoughts on it because we haven't talked about this on the show since it happened. I want to get I did a quick 3-minute short on it. Some of the people may have heard it. If not, go check it out. The controversy surrounding Grant Hussey. Um, he didn't play much at all in the regionals or super regionals. Didn't even get an at bat in the final game of the super regionals. A lot of fans are mad about that. I basically come out and said, we got to let the coach be the coach. We don't know what the details. We don't know what was happening behind the scenes. That's the kind of stuff that needs to stay in the clubhouse. Steve Saban's led this team to the greatest year in program history. We got to trust him, right?
Yeah.
It's a sucky situation. We appreciate Grant Hussey for everything he's done for the program over the last 4 years, for the great player he's been. But you got to trust the coach in this situation. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of took my thoughts and articulated them pretty well. We did talk about Hussey's benching, if you will, and I don't, and because I don't even know that that's the right word. I don't even know that benching is the right word. I think it was more of just a strategic play by Saban's.
Yeah.
And I've noted on this show before. Listen, baseball coaches and players, they're finicky people, man. I mean, if one thing works for a couple games and it becomes a superstition or something, you know what I
Right.
mean? And
Oh,
and
yeah.
so
Yeah.
I would just say this. I think two things can be true at one time, right? I think it can suck for Grant Hussey. I think you can acknowledge everything that he has meant for West Virginia baseball, and this entire program and the entire university. I think that can be true. I also think it can be true that Steve Sabins has proved to be a pretty darn good baseball coach.
Yep.
And for those questioning his decision on Hussey, I think Ben Lumsden performed pretty well.
Yeah.
I think
222. I think he had 6 RBIs and a homer and hit about 222.
it's
But
pretty important.
his hits were clutch hits too.
They
You know
were
what I
clutch.
mean? He hit them in big moments.
They were clutch. He was big in that Clemson regional. And so I think it can be true that we can acknowledge everything that Grant Hussey did for this program and what he means for it. and the future of it. But I think we can also acknowledge that Steve Saban's pretty darn good baseball coach, and I think he knows what he's doing, and the decisions that he made, they didn't quite backfire. I think they proved to be pretty accurate because Lumsden performed well and they won the Clemson Regional.
Yep.
Now, in terms of the last at bat, listen, I don't want this to sound harsh because I promise I don't mean it that way. But not everybody gets that Cinderella story, man. We don't know what the thinking was. I mean, you're battling, you're clawing, you're fighting, screaming, everything you can do at the end of the game. Your mind is going 100 miles an hour. You're thinking of every strategic point possible to get back in that game. And I think at the end of the day, we just have to leave it at that. I hate it. It does suck. But I think both Sabans and Hussey can be right in this situation that it stinks for one, but I think there's probably reasoning behind it. And I don't know that it means anything more than it just didn't get to happen.
Yep. Agreed. It's just sports. It's how it works in sports sometimes. And it's life. I mean, things don't always go the way you want it,
And that's my point. I had a conversation, actually, crazy enough, Couz, with my daughter when she graduated high school or her last senior game, and she was fortunate to win. And I told her, I said, the good life lesson is, count your blessings, because not everybody gets that story. And it kind of stinks that you didn't get that walk-off song or you didn't get that final at bat. And I understand it. And I'm sympathetic to that. As a West Virginian and as a baseball player, when I was in school and a huge baseball fan now, man, I hate it. Part of me deep down, I hate it. But it is sports and it is life.
And it's a team sport.
It's a team sport, but I think it's just that. I don't think one's right, one's wrong.
Great. Well said. Well said. Well, listen, everybody, please go check us out on X at WV Sports Chat. Very simple. At WV Sports Chat. That's the name of the new website, wvsportschat.com. Jonathan, myself, Shauna Rose, RJ Rice, we've all got stuff up over there. Go check it out. We're trying to grow this thing where you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Jonathan. Yep. Am I right? Yep. Instagram on as well. So go check us out there and support what we're doing, please. Read the articles. Leave comments if you want to. If you're listening to this on podcast platform, please leave a 5-star review. Please follow it on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're obviously on YouTube, leave likes, comments, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet here at Couz's Corner. We appreciate it. And again, thanks for tuning into the show. Hopefully we'll see you again next week for another episode of the Gold and Blue Breakdown Show. And until then, Q Country Roads.